Hey guys, Through the Rage here. Hope you're having a fantastic day. In this video, I will be taking a look at the confusing potential of World War III. But first, we're going to need a little bit of background on my experience with the shooter genre. It all started with Halo. My rural upbringing meant an internet connection that was spotty at best. This combined with hand-me-down everything from my eldest brother meant my formative gaming years were spent playing campaigns on repeat or trying not to screen peek my brother on what must have been the thickest RCA TV you have ever seen. Following this was the advent of the PlayStation 3. Up to this point, all the PS2 in my house was used for were the classics like Spyro and Vice City. That all changed when the Fire Nation attacked. With the PS3 came PlayStation Plus, which unleashed me upon the PvP genre, but that would not come to pass for several years. In the meantime, the advanced hardware of both the PS3 and 360 saw all new possibilities. During this period, my fruit-killing skills were remarkable, I earned the right to ride the tank, and I protected the Burger Town. And then the day came. PlayStation Plus granted me internet gaming. At the ripe old age of 14, I was given a baptism by fire at the hands of Treyarch.
Rated M for mature.
Black Ops 1 and Modern Warfare 3 ushered in the era of Reaper 215X. 2013 rolled around. With Black Ops 2 under my belt, I was anticipating the release of Call of Duty Ghosts and The Last of Us. While waiting to place my pre-order at GameStop, I came across the bargain bin. A tiny price tag led to my discovery of the joy of team play. Enter Battlefield 3. Engineer, medic, recon, and support. These roles were the foundation of my budding interest in ability-based gameplay. Each team member needing to fulfill a specific task or else risk defeat raised the stakes. Over many years, I transitioned away from the solo play-oriented kill streaks of COD to Battlefield squad tactics, and eventually found myself more concerned with the score than kills. This is not to say I abandoned Call of Duty entirely. That would not happen for a long time, and would be better explored in another video. Battlefield simply offered more progression, more tactics, more coordination, and most importantly, a diverse experience between each map as opposed to the 3 lanes of death COD had instilled in me. Suddenly, my sheer gameplay had 99 problems, but fun wasn't one. Battlefield offered me what I would call the trailer move, replicating not just the action, but the feeling of the game's promotional material. Something Call of Duty waned on over the years, but Battlefield seemed to be evergreen when it came to what marketing called only in Battlefield moments. 3 led to 4, which led to Hardline, and finally the aesthetic regressed back to the war to end all wars. Unfortunately, Battlefield 1 would prove to be the beginning of the end. Thankfully, the gameplay remained untainted enough to be enjoyable, especially in the brand new Operations mode. And then it happened.
Fuck it! Hello, old friend.
The Battlefield community would experience the first of 2 major setbacks that had them begging for the simpler days of the A-10 Hunter clearing Argonne Forest. Battlefield 5 was a misstep for the series, but we all thought it was just a fluke. The next one would be better, we said, and for a time, we were excited. The trailer for 2042 was incredible, promising the return of Rendezvous, C4 buggies, massive infantry battles, Levolution. What we received was a game that, even after being delayed, was in a terrible state, not only regarding its stability, but also its gameplay features. Roles replaced by custom classes, cringe voice lines, no single player, and worst of all, maps so poorly designed you could swear DICE was a new studio. Looking at the reshuffling of the studio during development, it basically was. It seemed Combined Arms gameplay was done for, but then came an unexpected savior. 4 long years after production began, the newest shooter demanding your attention hit the scene. It wasn't a battle royale. It wasn't a hero shooter. It wasn't a COD wannabe. It was World War III. Although delayed for 6 months, the excitement still held, so much so that the servers broke day 1, and day 2, and 3, 4... yeah. So it had a pretty rough launch, but who doesn't in modern gaming? A technical malfunction easily forgiven once gameplay was finally experienced. And oh boy did I experience it. When the servers were finally smooth, it brought me right back to Metro's warm embrace of infantry sweeping through hallways. Now you might be thinking, infantry? Hallways? After all that talk about vehicles and levolution? I was just confused as you are. But the answer is quite simple. World War III is not Battlefield. After all the marketing, all the cinematic trailers targeting that community, and interesting gameplay shown off by vets like Jack Frags, it amounted to little more than a flash in the pan. As of writing this script, the all-time peak, for a game only found on Steam, is 11,600 players. That number has begun dipping to below 9,000 for the 24-hour peak, and I suspect it will soon drop to 5,000 or less, even before the release of the newest Call of Duty. What makes it so unappealing? Why does it lack any staying power? What exactly makes World War III such a waste of time? In this analysis of the game's flaws, I will be avoiding things that all games are expected to fix after launch. As such, technical glitches, server size, server stability, and so on will not be the focus of this video. I instead will examine the game through the lens which the developers intend it to be experienced. This exploration of World War III will be broken up into 3 parts. I have labeled them the good, the bad, and the ugly. These categories are about positive, negative, and downright strange design decisions, respectively. Let's start with what I find to be the most preferable elements of the game, because honestly, it's gonna be all downhill after that. The single most important aspect of a shooter is, of course, how it feels to, well, shoot. To that end, I'm happy to report that the combat loop for infantry is very satisfying. Having a primary and secondary sight allows for multi-range engagements that transition smoothly with the tap of a single key. These engagements are aided by the lean mechanic, which allows cornering without exposing your entire body. This can be the difference between a successful rush or not. Unlike Battlefield and Call of Duty, there is a limitation on the pacing of attacks. This is achieved through friendly fire, which stops you from simply mag dumping a hallway while your teammates sprint in. But let's say an enemy surprises you while reloading. Lucky for you, the devs included a cancel mechanic, which allows you to fire any round you have chambered, thus breaking out at the reload animation. This is especially handy when recovering with a shotgun or LMG. Speaking of recovery, there are numerous opportunities for increasing movement speed in standing, crouch, and prone positions. This also includes the super sprint feature to run through the 90s twice as fast. To round out the combat, you can dolphin dive into the prone position. I found this especially useful for crossing open terrain in tactical operations. Of course, this is not the only positive note about the UI. Player accessibility is also very fleshed out. If you find the minimap too ambiguous for your liking, you can adjust its zoom distance. Naturally, the general HUD size can be increased as well. When it comes to weapon customization, World War III is filled to the brim with options. Scopes, grips, barrels, camos applied separately to nearly every inch of the weapon. The only place you'll find more tweaking for your guns is in Call of Duty's Gunsmith. I'm happy to report these configurations, including the camo scheme, can be saved easily and applied whenever you want. This customization also extends into matches with the backpack system. Your backpack allows you to swap your sights, grenade type, underbarrel attachment, and barrel on a whim, then back again during gameplay. Speaking of gameplay, let us address the elephant in the room, tactical operations. This mode is a 20 versus 20 combined arms battle where each team vies for control of several objectives that generate points over time. If it sounds familiar, that's because it's essentially the same as Battlefield's Conquest mode, just in reverse. Although it would seem the points of tactical operations are not tied in any way to eliminations. This mode is essentially what the game has been built on since day one, and I must admit, when it works, it works. Flashbacks to my Battlefield 3 days are common when playing this mode. Each capture point is made of 2 parts, usually one interior and one exterior. Both parts must be under your control to generate points for your team. This keeps both teams in constant motion as they migrate to each capture point with the intention of claiming the other half. When moving in to capture enemy objectives, your squad leader can mark it. The game tells you how many squads have marked that objective, which keeps you from dedicating too much manpower to any one capture point. With so many enemies to worry about on any given objective, I am grateful for the UAV strike package. It marks enemies not only on the minimap, but also live pings them every few seconds in the area of operation. Speaking of strike packages, there are several flavors of thermal optics for aerial and ground-based strike packages. This allows the player to customize their target acquisition on a per vehicle basis. Unfortunately, everything I just listed is all the praise I can muster for World War III. Some of these features are either done better in other games, or are so basic I would naturally expect them to be there. However, in the spirit of the critique, I decided to be generous with the good category, since the other two are bursting with negative feedback. Which brings me to the bad. This category is comprised of design decisions which actively harm the player experience on a fundamental level. The biggest difference between conquest and tactical operations is the addition of strike packages. This system functions similar to Call of Duty score streaks. Earn enough points, usually from capturing objectives, and you'll get to let loose with one of three streak types. These types consist of recon, artillery, and vehicle piloting. By assigning a point value to these vehicles, the game has actively diminished counterplay against them. It would be unfair to make a tank cost a ton of points, then have it easily destroyed by anti-armor projectiles, such as RPGs and other tanks. I believe this perfectly highlights why refusing to have dedicated squad roles makes World War III fail to feel more like the Battlefield games that is clearly emulating. Air combat is also sparse here, as the only manned vehicles are helicopter drones. The map designs do not allow for aerial combat between jets, leading to their absence. Infantry combat is also indirectly affected by strike packages, most notably the jammer UAV. Any enemy within the target area has narrators' callouts and their HUD glitch out of existence for the duration. I don't think I need to explain how getting your HUD removed in a game where enemies are already hard to see and hear makes the gameplay objectively worse, but more on those issues later. Your standard soldier will also experience inconsistent time to kill due to the armor system. There are three types of armor, meaning that some kills will feel faster than others even when using the same weapon. Steel plate armor nearly doubles the health of the user. This, combined with the high accuracy and damage output of assault rifles, means that playing with any other weapons or armor reduces your combat effectiveness. I could tolerate the armor system if there were more team play mechanics, but that is also something World War III lacks. Without specific roles of recon, support, engineer, and medic, you can expect your teammates to mostly run around trading shots with random infantry. Since there are no defined roles, you also don't get role-specific equipment. This makes your loadout feel much more generic. During a gunfight, you can expect your vision to blur significantly. Much like the Outer Limits, you should not attempt to adjust the picture. Farm 51 can change the focus to a soft blur. When suppressed by enemy gunfire, you will see a faint black vignette around your screen. This matches the same mechanic found in Battlefield, but the fun doesn't stop there. Imagine, if you will, the death screen from Battlefield 3. The camera falls over. A hand weakly reaches for aid. The screen blurs, and your soldier fades into the abyss. It's the blurring part of that visual that I want you to focus on. Now imagine the blur occurs every time you are shot at, and lasts for at least 5 whole seconds after the bullets stop flying in your general direction. As if this suppression mechanic wasn't enough, there are also explosives that have no viable warning in-game. Having a frag land in your lap is a death sentence nearly every time. Even with super sprint, there is no way to avoid the lethal blast radius. This makes the frag the only grenade worth carrying. Claymores are a little more forgiving, but still pretty bad. Unless you are continuously moving at full sprint in a straight line away from the claymore, when it triggers, you won't get away. Get used to hearing several beeps, or grenade, followed by an immediate explosion, because you'll be hearing it a lot in TDM. Speaking of damage, let's discuss the healing mechanic. Obviously, a med pack will return you to full health if interacted with, but there is also some minute healing that happens automatically. Unfortunately, this healing has a long delay, a slow speed when it finally does activate, and only fills up to the next pip. With health being broken up into 3 pips, that means that if you take 40 points of damage, you will be stuck at 60 HP until you find a med pack. Basically, any amount of damage over 10 points is a death sentence, because enemies will keep showing up while you're wounded. Next on chopping block are ease of use issues for the player. These are things that make it hard for the player to interact with the game. Players are encouraged to use a secondary sight, but that requires a primary sight to already be attached. This means you must waste an attachment slot on a primary sight, even if you don't want one, or you have to put one of the sights from your backpack on at the start of the match. Speaking of the backpack, now is a good time to talk about what's in it. Earlier I said the backpack system was nice, but that was only half the story. The other half is a tale of wasted potential. You may only carry one item per replacement type. This means you get one primary sight, one secondary sight, an underbarrel, a barrel mod, and a grenade. Want to use gas grenades instead of smoke? Or do you need a longer scope instead of a red dot? Better hope you have a loadout design for that, or you have to wait till the match is over to change it. Battlefield let you change every aspect of your loadout at any point during a match. This is a problem that the competition solved over a decade ago. Speaking of Battlefield, do you remember that handy spotting tool? The one that marks an enemy so that teammates can clearly see them without the need for voice chat? Forget about it. Unless your crosshair, which is a tiny half-faded dot, is directly over the enemy when you hit the spot key, it won't mark them. You will instead throw down a general ping square. This would be tolerable if this wasn't also the case for asking for aid packs. Short on rounds, armor cracked. Did you take a bullet to the knee? Good luck getting your teammates to notice. Getting a blueberry's attention is already hard enough in World War III. This issue is compounded by needing to perfectly time your ping to ask for help. A proper comms wheel, which we'll critique in the final section, would have reduced this aggravation. Another aggravation can be found when looking at the full map, especially when calling in strike packages. The game centers the cursor over your icon on the tablet, but the icons themselves are staggeringly small compared to the terrain. Most times I found myself blindly calling down the strikes unless I had a UAV to point me to the enemy. Farm 51, why are you making the players strain themselves trying to read the UI? Seeing enemies on the ground isn't much better since the design of characters causes them to blend into the environment. More saturated uniform colors or bolder silhouettes would help players stand out more. On the lighter side of things, tossing grenades is a bit annoying. Instead of letting the player throw at their leisure, the grenade triggers with a button press. Depending on your keybinds, this can screw with your movement decisions since you have to time the wind-up animation. Why not let the player simply take the grenade out and then throw it? Another item that needs improvement in its operation is the repair tool. Its activation is contextual, meaning you must be near a friendly vehicle to even pull it out. Once equipped, you can repair, but at a slow rate and not for very long as it overheats quickly. This makes repairing feel sluggish and unfulfilling. On the subject of things that feel bad to do, let's talk about the challenge system. Daily challenges offer XP, which levels your character, while weekly challenges offer the only significant way of making SP, the in-game currency. This would be fine if these challenges weren't mostly situational, relying on you to queue for specific maps, using specific playstyles, and needing the enemy to perform specific actions. It didn't work in Halo Infinite, it's not working in Overwatch 2, and it definitely does not work in World War III. Other things that don't work are transport vehicles. Buggies don't have gunner seats, and quads let the passenger only face backwards. I've never seen these vehicles used in any significant capacity. Modes that would encourage the use of these vehicles are actually missing entirely. Rush and Operations, which are objectively the best modes Battlefield ever created, are just not here. Why? Would it really be that hard to have troops rush forward and plant a bomb? We did that after base jumping back in Battlefield 3. We have now reached our final category, the ugly. I have saved the downright horrendous decisions for this section. These design choices are so strange that they go beyond being just bad, which is why I've given them their own section. First, let's discuss grinding. There are weight limitations which prevent certain combinations of primaries, secondaries, and armor. Couple this with there being only so many slots available for attachments on a weapon, and you end up with a contradiction. The devs seem to want Call of Duty custom classes while restricting player freedom. If they didn't want traditional Battlefield roles, then they could have at least used the Pick 10 system, which has been extremely popular since its inception in Black Ops 2. Speaking of contradictions, remember those helicopter drones I mentioned? You won't have a snowball's chance in hell of taking them out until level 23, because the lock-on rocket launcher does not unlock until that level. Keeping infantry from engaging enemy vehicles in a significant manner makes the player want to avoid tactical operations altogether. This is where another contradiction creeps in. There are only two modes, but for progress purposes there is really only TAC Ops because it generates passive XP for your weapon, forcing the player to engage with a mode they may not enjoy. At this point, I should probably mention what weapon progression is for. Obviously, it unlocks attachments, but there are also camos to earn. Sadly, the top tier camo, Blue Steel, is little more than stained aluminum. I hope you enjoyed playing dozens of hours of TAC Ops because the cosmetic pot at the end of the rainbow is full of fool's gold. Don't worry, there's also the shop. Although 90% of those items are only obtainable from premium currency, there are some each shop cycle that can be acquired using SP, the weekly challenge currency. Well, I shouldn't say some, more like 2 or 1. Depends on if you want to spend it on a strike package, because each shop cycle you are offered a weapon blueprint, and maybe a strike package vehicle blueprint. Maybe. So really, the SP currency is entirely pointless. Let's get back to the gameplay talk for a moment. Good luck telling your ally from an enemy when they turn the corner. Aside from a small blue dot over their head, there is no visual difference between the factions. This can lead to friendly fire, which reduces your personal score. Another bit of confusion are the accents. Unlike Battlefield, which chose to identify enemies not only with visual but also audio cues, World War III randomly scatters accents throughout. You may hear, "I'm reloading," from a British soldier, while your own character says, "Need ammo," in a Russian accent. This lack of unified accents leads to confusion when enemies are nearby. Assuming you don't shoot your teammates, survive an enemy attack, and might actually need meds, ammo, or armor, you get to play America's favorite game show. Will the enemy show up while I'm staring at the ground? That's right, to replenish your character's various needs, you must cease playing the game, look at a pack on the ground, and hold the interact button for several seconds. Battlefield 1's pouch aid system would have come in handy here. Just let us toss our teammates supplies. It makes the gameplay much smoother because it doesn't halt the pacing. Since we're on the subject of pacing, let's talk about capture speeds. It doesn't change based on the number of players. A single player will capture an objective at the same rate as an entire squad. This leads to lots of people standing around because they want capture score, instead of going on to the next objective. Once you finally do return to the fight, you'll get to tap space twice to climb up onto a ledge. No holding the button allowed. Given how basic of an interaction it is, I don't see how a game that has been worked on for 4 years didn't bother improving this. Another movement feature that makes no sense is sliding. Sliding should throw the enemy off or let you move smoothly over terrain. In World War III, it's actually a detriment to the gameplay. There is no shooting allowed until the sliding animation is complete, which means there is no reason to use the slide unless you like being a sitting duck. Getting hung up on terrain's always fun, yet another problem that was solved years ago by other shooters. And the final movement problem is also a damage problem. Falling from any height greater than 3 feet will earn you the wrath of Newton's third law. At least that's how Farm 51 sees it. While I've not tested this extensively, I can say without a doubt you do not want to hop off anything over 6 feet in height, unless you like getting your HP cut in half instantly. Since you will take significant damage from what one might consider a minor fall, this impacts your movement choices. You will be restricted to ramps and stairs, aka Stompy McLeod-ass kill boxes. Here we find another contradiction. Little tumbles will break your ankles, but high explosives don't do much. Good luck using the C4 and M203 launcher. Both deal between 30 and 40 damage per hit. That means you will need about 3 direct hits to ensure a kill. When you know it, the C4 only lets you have 3 at a time, and the M203 gets just 2. 2 rounds total. You better have the equipment bag if you want to use these explosives more than once per life. They were clearly designed with only the intent of being used against enemy vehicles, useless as that would be. Speaking of killing the fun, let's take a look at all the things World War III is just flat out missing. No akimbo pistols, and as a bonus, switching to sidearms is painfully slow. Should an enemy rush your sniper's nest, you have almost no chance of survival. There are no compass cardinal directions. That means no north, south, east, or west callouts. What is the point of a compass made of just 360-degree numbers? There are no animated melee finishers, thus the melee system is meaningless. The heresy of a Battlefield-style game not letting you snatch tags almost makes me grab the heavy flamer. The only infantry game mode available is Team Deathmatch. No domination, hardpoint, CTF, or even just free-for-all. Could it really be that hard to add a couple custom game modes? If you won't give me much XP, at least let me have some varied experiences. There is a pitiful number of maps. 7 for TAC Ops and 3 for TDM, but the TDM maps are just reworks of small areas taken from the TAC Ops maps. The maps are also repetitive. You'll run over, capture an objective, then do that again for the next 30 minutes. In TDM, you'll run around in literal circles because of the spawn system, which always places enemies on the exact opposite side of the map. TAC Ops maps don't even have a single building with a roof you can climb onto. If you're a sniper, I guess Farm 51 doesn't care about you. Self-repair, a mechanic found in Battlefield 1, is only available here with an upgrade. Why? What's the point? Don't know. The inner machination of Farm 51's mind are an enigma. You're also out of luck if you catch any unlucky nade with your teeth, because it seems that medics don't even have a way to revive you. No defib, no morphine, you just get to respawn. After a delay, of course. Building destruction is also non-existent. You may get a wall bang on a door or a metal shutter in the Warsaw Mall, but that's it. I guess destruction mechanics really are only in Battlefield. Although I said I wouldn't cover technical glitches, this one is just too egregious not to mention. World War III's attempt at spatial audio is fucking atrocious. It would honestly be better if it was just basic audio that didn't try to be 3D. It literally sounds backwards at times. Enemy footsteps sounding exactly like teammates is especially heinous since it lets an enemy join your stampede toward the objective, then shoot you all in the back. Your only chance to listen for the enemy in World War III is to never move and stare at your mini-app to make sure the footsteps you hear nearby are teammates. Last on our list is the comms wheel. The Como Rose, that thing which facilitates communication between players without waiting for text chat or needing a microphone. There are a total of 4 options, one of which is just asking which objective to attack. Honestly, what the fuck were they thinking? I mean, really, is it that hard to make a radio wheel of text that activates an audio cue? To make a long video short, we can say this about the game. There is fun to be had, but you have to check several capture points in every armor pack and all over the Strike Package tablet screen to find it. It's like Where's Waldo, but the prize is keeping your sanity after encountering so many baffling design decisions. Farm 51 simply added too many ingredients to something that could have otherwise worked as a Battlefield alternative. You may like several kinds of toppings on pizza, but you would never put them all on at once. And that is why World War III is such a waste of time. Thanks for watching, and if you liked the video, then do the usual. Like, subscribe, check out my streams, and I will see you guys in the next video. Reaper the Rager, signing off.